Hey guys, welcome to my Blink video. Blink has almost hit 91,000 views, which is super exciting, and I just want to thank all of you guys who read it, voted for it, and commented on it, especially the people who did all three. I really, really love you guys. You're keeping my dream afloat. NaNoWriMo update. It's day 24. And I'm almost at 40,000 words. The process has been super intense, and I've often struggled with content and feeling like certain days I haven't written that good of work, but it's a really good process, and I really recommend it to anyone who wants to be a writer and wants to write a novel, because it forces you not to be a perfectionist all the time, which I am. Usually if I don't write something perfect, I'll just delete it. But during NaNoWriMo, you can't do that, or you don't make your word limit. So that's my NaNoWriMo update. I've got someone interested in being an editor for Blink after I finish it, which is super exciting because I met her at the Writers Festival. We're both volunteering there, and I was talking about Blink on Facebook. And she said, hey, I can do an edit for you when you're finished. I can do a structural edit. And I was like, that's amazing, because that's exactly what I need, is a structure edit, because Blink is all over the place, like, even in the short story, it's, Dots becomes years and years ahead of Zip, but in the novel, it's just insane. Like, the timelines are just crazy, and it gets really confusing, and I've confused myself. Sometimes I don't even understand my own logic. So I can't blame you guys if you do. But yeah, hopefully working with her will be interesting, and seeing what she can add to the novel, and yeah, seeing what we can get out of it and get it to reach its potential. It's pretty exciting. I really encourage all of you guys to volunteer at writing festivals, because it's the industry that you want to get into, and while you don't get paid for it, it's a great experience, because you get to meet lots of writers, you get to ask them questions and stuff like that, and you get to be around people like you that want to be writers, and it's so inspirational. So I can't recommend it enough. I wanted to answer a couple of questions about Blink that I get a lot of times. The first is, are you going to continue Blink? Which I get a lot. I guess I've already answered that, really, because I am novelizing it. So yes, I am continuing Blink. So you can stop asking me now. I am continuing Blink. You can quote me on that. What else? Inspirations for Blink. I've had that a couple of times. And it's an interesting question. It's quite hard to put inspirations, like a specific inspiration, on an idea, but if I had to say, there are two inspirations for me, really. Inspiration on style, the style of the writing, was definitely Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. It's a fantastic book, and if you haven't read it, you should definitely check it out. His protagonist is also a young boy who has autism, and he experiences the world in a completely different way to everyone else. And I thought that was fascinating, and while it didn't directly influence me, I didn't read it and think, oh, I want to write something like this. When I started writing it, it just seemed to fit the story that I wanted to tell. In terms of concept, I'd have to put that down to reading a ton of Philip K. Dick. When I was growing up, Philip K. Dick is an amazing author, and he just has the best science fiction concepts, just like way ahead of his time, and just fascinating. He always has a twist at the end of his story. So, if you don't like my twist endings, you can blame Philip K. Dick, because that's where I get it from. And really, a lot of my science fiction really tries to emulate Philip K. Dick. He's just a legend. I just want to tell a brief story about the writing process of Blink, because I know that some of you sometimes have a problem with getting your ideas down on the page, or conceptualizing an idea. And I came up with the idea for Blink maybe about 4 years ago, and I tried to write it, but it just wasn't working. Yeah, I really didn't like it. It just didn't work at all. So then I left it in my notebook for about a year, and I tried to write it again because I had like a little epiphany, and I thought that I could write it this time. And I wrote about a page, and it was crap. I really hated it. For some reason, Dot was bald, and the reason he blinked through time was because he had like got a bit of radioactive dust in his eye or something stupid. I was probably watching too much Smallville, but the point is I hated it, but I didn't let it go. I let it sit for another 2 years or something, and one day, probably after I read Curious Incident, it just kind of hit me how I could write it. And I just sat down for hours and hours and hours, and I wrote it, and I redrafted it and whatnot, and then it just happened. It was really an epiphany, and I really encourage you guys to keep notebooks. And even if you think your idea is silly or small or whatever, just write it down, and who knows where it might go. Because sometimes I look through notebooks and I think, oh well, this is a really crappy idea. What would I ever do with this? Just throw it in the fireplace. And sometimes I can pick little things out of bad ideas and use them. And other times I think, oh wow, this is a fantastic idea. Time traveling monkeys. I'm totally gonna write this. So I really encourage that of you guys. And the process is, sometimes you might sit down to write a story, and it might come to you, and you might write it in a couple of hours. Other times it might take 3 years, in the example of Blink. So don't let that discourage you. Yeah, so that's pretty much my video on Blink. I'm really starving right now. I haven't eaten in a long time, so I'm gonna go get some food, and thanks for watching. See you next time.